Hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you tonight and give you another bookshelf tour. And this is going to come from the middle bookshelf that sits in my regular videos, and it is the third shelf down. I'm going to introduce some Civil War books to you that I've got in the collection, and then the second half of the shelf is early American history. And so I hope you enjoy this, and well, let's get started. So first on the list is a book about Clara Barton, a woman of valor, Clara Barton in the Civil War, and it's by Stephen Oates. Oates. And I got this book because my daughter had done a History Day project in oh goodness, what was that, 7th grade, I guess it was, and her project, they did a performance, her and a couple of her friends, and they ended up going on to state with that performance, and they did very, very well, receiving very high marks. And so I didn't have a lot of stuff on Clara Barton to really help her out, and so I had ordered these from Amazon, or I'd ordered some stuff from Amazon. This one didn't come from Amazon, but I'd ordered some other books from Amazon, and this one I actually got at Books Revisited. Stephen B. Oates, I have a book about Lincoln that he wrote, and I have read that before, and it was decent, and so I wanted to try this one, and so that's the first book on our tour of the shelf. Next book is The House Divides: The Age of Jackson and Lincoln from the War of 1812 to the Civil War by Paul Wellman. And I always find that period of the nation dividing pretty fascinating. And so I found that book, and I thought, well, I better hang on to that one. And this one actually comes from our local city library. They were cleaning out books, and I wanted to make sure that one did not hit the trash, because when they clean out books, oftentimes that's what happens. And I've shared with you before, I have troubles with books going to the trash, especially if they have value. I usually try to salvage and save every one that I can. All right, here's a book, Reflections on the Civil War by Bruce Canton, edited by John Leakley. And I like Canton. I've read a couple of his other ones. I read one on, the short history of the Civil War. I read, he wrote one on Gettysburg, and I can't remember what exactly it's called, but I read that one, and then I read The Coming Fury, which was part of a series on the Civil War that he wrote, and I really liked those. And so when I saw this at Books Revisited, I thought I better pick that one up, and I think I did pretty good, because this is in pretty new condition, and so you don't really get much better than that for just $2. Another book that I got at Books Revisited was John Brown and the Soul of America: Patriotic Treason, by Evan Carton. And that's all about, of course, John Brown, who, depending on how you look at him, he is either a martyr or a murderer. That's always an argument that we have in our classroom. We have a big discussion on, what do you think he is? You know, did he do right or did he do wrong? And so we get to looking at the morality of some of the the issues that happened during the Civil War, and that always gets the kids kind of fired up. We usually have some pretty good discussion on that. So I'd found that, and I thought I'd better buy that. That'll go well with our unit, and maybe I can learn a little extra stuff. The next one I got is A Doorstop. It is part of a trilogy that Shelby Foote wrote, The Civil War, a narrative, and this is, I believe, book 2 of that narrative, Fredericksburg to Meridian, and it's got some pretty cool artwork. This is a old library book, old library copy. I don't remember exactly where I got it. It's fairly beat up, and it's got some stains on the pages. It doesn't really, the smell's not too bad, so it doesn't really bother me that much. But what does bother me is it's volume 2, and I do not have volume 1 or 3. And I hate starting a series in the middle of the series. I I am very anal about needing to read volume 1, then volume 2, then volume 3. I cannot start in the middle. It just drives me insane. So I am going to have to find volume 1 before I get going on this. The next one is by John Keegan, The American Civil War, A Military History. Now, John Keegan is a pretty famous military historian. He's done lots and lots of books. He's done some on World War I, World War II, the Civil War. He's got books on pretty much all modern warfare. I've got over on the shelf over here, I've got a couple others by him that I'll share with you at a later time. But he's a pretty good author. All right, sticking with this Civil War theme, another one, American Ulysses, A Life of Ulysses S. Grant by Ronald C. White. That's a pretty cool book, pretty cool cover. Fairly new condition. I was pretty proud when I picked that one up. Pretty happy anyway. And, of course, Grant was a big hero of the Civil War. He's the only one that really stood up to Lee. I guess there was another general that at Gettysburg that stood up to him, but he really didn't. He didn't carry forward with everything. Grant not only stands up, but then carries forward with the war and takes it right at General Lee. And I have a lot of respect for him. It was some hard decisions that had to be made, and well, he did it. And Ronald C. White's a good author. I have read the Lincoln book, and he's also got one on the second inaugural speech that Lincoln wrote, and I've read that one, and it was really good. So I'm kind of excited about this one. This book is on my reading list for this year, my TBR for the year, The Impending Crisis, 1848 to 1861. This is a part of that New American Nation series. It was by David M. Potter, and he ended up dying before the book was finished, so Don Fehrenbacher actually finished it for him, and Potter ended up winning the Pulitzer Prize after his death, posthumously, and so I'm very, very excited to read this book. I've been wanting to read it for a long time, and so I put it on my list of things to do this year. So now we're going to start getting back into the revolutionary period and some smaller volumes. So this is The Coming of the Revolution, 1763 to 1775, by Lawrence Henry Gibson, also part of that New American Nation series. Okay, pretty thin volume. I see his name often on Works Cited, and so I'm excited to read this and get another perspective. Here's one I picked up, Jefferson and Madison, The Great Collaboration by Adriana Koch. And so, hopefully I pronounced that first name right. There's that, pretty thin volume. Next one on the list is A Brilliant Solution, Inventing the American Constitution by Carol Birkin. And she's a big name historian from this time period, big women's historian. And putting together, and she also does some stuff with the Constitution. So I was pretty excited to get that. And then, because she's such a good author, I've got another one by her. First Generations, Women in Colonial America by Carol Birkin. And that's kind of looks like a little bit older volume. I don't know exactly what the year is without looking, but pretty thin volume. Should be a quick read. And sticking with women's history in early American, the American Revolutionary time period, here is Founding Mothers, The Women Who Raised Our Nation by Cokie Roberts. Hopefully I said that right. Forgive me if I didn't. Okay. There's that. Next volume is Constitutional Journal. And this is Jeffrey St. John. Correspondence Report from the Convention of 1787. Another ex-library book. As you can see, the library tag still on there. Next volume's by one of my favorite authors. I have yet to read this one, though. I've read several of his other books, but not this one. And it is James and Dolly Madison, America's First Power Couple by Bruce Chadwick. Chadwick writes, his style of writing is very, very easy for people to understand, in my opinion, and I really enjoy reading his works. I've read several books on Washington, and he's done some stuff with the Civil War and Lincoln, and I really like those. And now here was a recent book that was very, very popular, Pulitzer Prize winner. Also says it won the National Book Award, but The Hemmingses of Monticello, An American Family by Annette Gordon Reed. And I've been pretty excited to read this. I've listened to some of her talks on YouTube and then on iTunes University. You can find stuff on there for free, and I really enjoy listening to them give their talks and lectures. Here is John Meacham's book, Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power. And I've had that one on the shelf for a little while now, and I really want to get to that one. Just not enough time in the day, I tell you. And you know, the biggest thing I found was with starting to do these videos, one of the big problems that I found, and maybe you guys, I'm guessing you guys probably have the same issues, but I've really enjoyed doing this, but as you start to edit and stuff, it takes so much time to do that, or it does for a technological moron like myself anyway, and it takes me a while to get them to get things, you know, cut out if I make a mistake or something, and it's taken away from some of my reading time, and that's, if I had a big disappointment, that would be my big disappointment. I've really enjoyed this whole process, but that's the one thing I have not enjoyed, is missing out, you know, missing out on my reading. I have not enjoyed that at all, and I don't know. I guess there's some give and take there, and I gotta figure that out for myself on, you know, how much is too much or not enough. So, anyway, this has been a round of bookshelf tours. I hope that you enjoyed this, and have a good night. Bye.